Merry Meet, Annie here. This video is kind of a response to last week's pagan perspective topic. When that topic came up, there were several different subtopics within the topic, and one of them was very interesting. It was about wands and woods and how to select woods and what woods. And I was looking at that going, I don't have an opinion on this. I'm not a wand person. So I decided we had such a great group of subs at Pagan Perspective that when that kind of thing happens, I would like to offer it up for the subs to take it, because some of them have experiences I don't. And indeed, Cole did a great job talking about wands and wood. But there was another part of that I wanted to address, and it was about correspondences. And that had been tied in with that subject because of the correspondences of what kind of woods one might use in a wand. But the question got wider than that, and it's why I wanted to take it to my personal channel and talk about it just a little bit. And I'll do this as one of my This Witch Is Away. Correspondences, in this case, when it comes to things like elemental directions. And the reason I am focusing on this is the person who asked the question did mention where they held elemental correspondence to come from when it came to matching them to a cardinal direction. And they asked if that was a given, that it didn't necessarily make sense where we all live, how these European cardinal directions and where the elementals appeared to live, they didn't necessarily match to where all of us live. And there was a question about correspondences in general and how literal we have to be in interpreting them, but there was also kind of that question around this cardinal direction. And this intrigued me. I've seen responses since that people have picked up on the topic from Pagan Perspective and also from conversations that have come out of that. And you see every extreme. You see it doesn't matter. Invent whatever fits and works for you, to the other extreme, which is it must be as it was declared by someone at some time, that the directions are this and they equal this element. So we all know I have a traditional background, and you might think, well, Annie probably holds to the school of cardinal points equaling traditional Wicca and what direction things are associated with. Not so, not exactly. And I ponder that, and I've considered that, and I've played with it over time. I do believe when you're working in a group, when you're working with others, that if you have a disconnection where all of you have your own interpretation, that you have a difficult time then working together. But I do think when one is working alone, there could be a lot more freedom in it than that. If I were declaring this is what the cardinal points mean, sitting here where I live, in relationship to where I sit on the earth, I probably would be comfortable with north being earth, because north is Canada and coolness and mountains, everything I could envision about earth. I definitely would be comfortable with south being fire. South would be the southern parts of the United States where it turns to sand and palm trees and tropical temperatures. However, unlike the Europeans who looked to the west, to the Atlantic Ocean, I look to the east, to the Atlantic Ocean. Water makes sense to me to be an element of the east. And the prevailing winds, the direction from which winds come where I live, is generally from the west to the east. If I were coming up with my own magical system, I would exchange the traditional directions of east for air and west for water. I'd flip them, because I would relate to that, and the tie into the land would make more sense to me. I haven't done that. I hold to the original cardinal directions as I was taught, which is east air, south fire, west water, and earth at the north. Why have I done that? Because to me the cardinal points are outside of this time and this place. I don't hold to that because someone in Europe said this is the direction that each element must be. I hold to it because at the etheric level, north equals earth. At that level to me, Now, where you can play with this, and it can be very interesting, is assuming you have a relationship with the elements. Call north at the south and see what comes to you. What do you feel? What do you feel? Try truly, it works best outside, facing east, call up water. Whatever it takes to not be in alignment with traditional cardinal points, and see, do you still have as powerful a relationship with the element? When I think North Earth, am I truly thinking of a compass point north of where I am located physically? Or am I talking of an etheric point, a place at which the element of Earth resides, which I have chosen to call North, and align myself with the traditional aspects of my path, which called Earth North? So I don't hold true to it is unbroken law that the cardinal points are the cardinal points. Mostly because I don't connect the directions to the physical world. It's really something that feels at the energetic level to me. So in my circle, if we all turn to the east for air, knowing that we're looking almost exactly out onto the Atlantic Ocean, and we are not even facing the direction at which air usually comes. There's no affiliation of air if we turn east. But when we turn east, we all feel air. It proves the cardinal directions are not the most important thing to my mind. It can be that it has to be for you, that you need to follow something that strictly. You also have to hold in mind when working with a group, one mind, one focus, one ability to think and see when you're in circle together alike. So it can be an interesting thing to play with as a solitary. It's interesting to play with that if you have a room where you want to put your altar, and you'd like to put your altar at north, but you cannot. And I know I've had this discussion with a couple of you privately. You can't put your altar, which you want to be earth, at north for some kind of setup of the room, arrangement of the room, furniture's in the way. It just doesn't work. So what if you put your altar someplace else? But you know it in your heart and your mind. This is earth, and at the energetic level, this is north. What do you connect to? Can you step out of the physical world that you are in and align that altar with wherever you need it to be and work from there? You might not be able to. It's very important that if you need that feeling of sunrise is air, sunset is west, to go with that traditional flow of the cardinal directions. Don't buck it if it's uncomfortable for you, I say. But I do say try playing with it. I really do feel that if you have worked to understand the elements and you are elementally balanced and you have a relationship to the elements, the elementals, to your elemental guardians, you can stand any direction you want and call forth the energy of that direction at the energetic level. And of course the spirit of the element. That's my take on it. It's actually a pretty liberal take. But I wanted to share it because my experience of it in the end came down to, if Earth has to always be north, what happens when I turn to another direction and call forth the element of Earth? And I have discovered that since I have the relationship with the element of Earth, it doesn't matter what direction I am facing. Unless, of course, I'm in a group and we want to focus together and call forth that very specific energy, facing together and looking the same way and being of one mind. There's my thoughts on that. Some of my earlier teachers would have thought it rather heretical of me. It doesn't feel that way to me. It feels like a maturity of relationship to the elements, which does know there is a cardinal point, but not a fixed cardinal point of this world so much as an energetic home of the elements. Of each individual one has their energetic home that we know, we relate to, and we do have a magnetic reaction to that and know it and feel it and face it. But the facing of it is an internal thing, an energetic thing. Not always a thing of air must be east and water must be west. Something else to put in the bucket that we're all tossing in our thoughts on this one. Very interesting discussions happening out there on this one. I wish you all mirth and reverence. Merry part.